and welcome to this fireside chat of the Working Group on AI for Economic Growth and Social Good. This session brings together the co-chairs of the working groups for an informal yet focused conversation on how AI can be translated into tangible economic value and meaningful social outcomes. At the very outset, we would like to thank our esteemed co-chairs, both from the Netherlands as well as Indonesia, for being here with us today, as stewardship and support in leading the work of this working group. This fireside chat, of course, as you all may know, is under the broader framework of the India AI Impact Summit, which has been convened as a platform to advance global dialogue on AI with a clear emphasis on outcomes. At a time when AI is rapidly moving from experimentation to adoption, the summit seeks to focus attention on how this transition can be guided responsibly, inclusively, and in ways that delivers real benefits for societies and economies. We are honored to have with us today Sri Abhishek Singh, IAS, Director General of the NIC, the National Informatics Center, and Additional Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India, as well as the overall anchor of the summit. Sri Singh plays a pivotal role in driving India's digital transformation, including leadership of the IndiaAI Mission and stewardship of key initiatives in artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, cybersecurity, and digital skilling. His deep expertise in leveraging technology for public good and his strategic vision make him an inspiring anchor for today's deliberations. With that, it is my honor to invite Sir to deliver the keynote address and guide this fireside chat.
Thank you, Kushal, and it's indeed an honor and privilege to be kicking off the hybrid meeting of the working group on economic growth and social good, chaired by India, Debjani Ghosh, my friend and colleague, the leading frontier tech in Niti Aayog, Ambassador His Excellency Harry Warfaway from Ambassador at Large from Netherlands, Professor Sumari from Indonesia, distinguished experts who are here for this working group meeting, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed India's proud privilege to be hosting the Impact Summit in February this year. Many of you are already aware with regard to the contours of the summit, how it is shaping up. And I must say, every conversation that I have had in Lucknow, in UP, or anywhere else in Delhi, the buzz around all the key players in the ecosystem is about the summit, about participating in it, about contributing to it, about trying to become a part of the narrative that is being built towards the AI Impact Summit and how we can work together to create impact from the most powerful technology the humanity has ever seen. The way the whole summit is structured is that we have 7 working groups, and each working group has India as a chair and 2 co-chairs from international countries who have been part of it. This is the working group on economic growth and social good. We have other working groups on safe and trusted AI, on science, on inclusion, on democratizing AI resources, on ensuring access to public services. So, but when it comes to all the working groups, the kind of work which is happening across, all of it will ultimately contribute to creating the outcome documents for the working groups, and the outcomes and deliverables of the working groups will go into framing of the leaders' statement that will be adopted in the main plenary that will be held on 19th of February 2026, in which heads of state, ministers from across the world will take part. Towards this objective, the working groups have a lot to contribute. And in fact, if you look at the deliberations, the intense deliberations that have happened across all working groups, the kind of expertise, the kind of insight that has come on across has really shaped up a very, very powerful agenda. And amongst all working groups, I feel if the maximum impact I am seeing of any working group, it is the working group on economic growth and social good. Why? Because as we were having this informal discussion at lunch today with the Ambassador Faway and Debjani, is that ultimately the benefit of this technology will come by wider adoption, by wider diffusion. And this will be reflected if it results in efficiency gains, if it results in productivity gains across sectors. When we look at the way we are using tech today, we are using AI today, whether it's using Chat GPT or Gemini or any of the tools which are available today for doing our work, what does it contribute to? It helps us in doing more with less. It helps us cut down our unproductive work and ensure that we are able to focus our time, our energy on the most important thing, which is about critical thinking, which is about prospective planning, and which is about doing the real stuff. And all the mundane stuff like drafting or creating a document based on what your thoughts are left to the AI. So if AI is making us more efficient and more productive, can we transfer the same efficiency productivity gains to other sectors? If we can use tech to make a farmer more efficient, if we can help it, if we can use this AI to make a MSME, to a manufacturing unit, or to a retailer, or to a student, or to an educational system, if they can you adopt it to bring in efficiency productivity gains, it will result in economic growth. It will result in larger benefits for both individuals, for enterprises, for societies, for countries. So that's what economic growth can result in. And the way the working group has deliberated on, it will find out pathways to achieve that economic growth, adoption in various sectors, which are the solutions which are we are talking about. And the same applies to social good. When we look at the social sectors, when we look at sectors like agriculture or healthcare or education, how we can build AI, impactful AI solutions. Mr. Madan Patki is here. He always talk about how AI can work for villages, how AI can work for underprivileged societies, how AI can work for countries which are not part of the AI story so far. Build such AI solutions, if we can create the AI commons, if we can get the use cases, repositories of such solutions, then it can be a real contribution of this summit to the way adoption and diffusion will happen. So the deliberations of this working group has contributed to that direction, recognizing good solutions, recognizing innovators, recognizing disruptors, trying to create a platform in which we identify the best of the solutions which can be replicated across the world. That's the working group has, from what I have learned, has contributed so far. So I welcome all the experts, all the co-chairs who are here today. We are looking forward to a very exciting fireside chat in which the real experts, the chairs, the co-chairs, will give insights with regard to how they have been working, how they have been collaborating with stakeholders from across sectors in getting to the outcomes of this working group. The convening today, the hybrid convening today is a step in that direction, that not only online meetings, we go to states, we go to places like Lucknow and get to hear from the real stakeholders. We heard about the health sector today in the conference that is going on. How do we imbibe that in? How do we build it into the outcomes of the working group? And that is what the whole objective of today's this session is here. So without wasting any more time, I think I will invite the chair and the co-chairs for the fireside chat. We have Debjani Ghosh, who is the chair of this working group. She's a distinguished fellow at Niti Aayog, the Frontier. She leads the. She's the chief architect of the Niti Frontier Tech Hub, and she has been part of India's digital story as president of the NASSCOM. She was the first female president of NASSCOM, and she was also worked for long in the head of Intel South Asia, and she has been contributing to this sector for a very long time. She's also been recognized as the first ladies, among India's first ladies, by the President of India. She has been featured in Vogue's Tech Leader of the Award and in Female 1040 over 40 World's Most Inspiring Women. And I must say, she has been contributing immensely to not only this working group, but entirely shaping India's AI story. So welcome, Debjani, for this fireside chat. We have His Excellency Ambassador at Large, Harry Verwey, who is a career diplomat from Netherlands with over 40 years of service for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He joined the ministry in 84 as a legal counselor, and since then has been taking various positions, both in the Netherlands as also across the world in various positions. And his positions included Director Security, Crisis Management and Integrity, and Inspector at the Inspection and Audit Service. We are honored to have his leadership and continued support and to steward the work of this working group. We are also joined online by Professor Arvind Sumari, who is a special staff to the Chief of Staff of the Indonesian Air Force. He is a senior academic and strategic advisor with extensive expertise in aerospace, defense technology, and national security policy. Thank you, Professor Arvind, for your support and leadership as the co-chair of the AI for Economic Growth and Social Good Working Group. So, welcome to this working group, and we'll kick off the discussion straight away. So, I will begin the discussion with you, Debjani, as the chair of the working group, to throw some insights with regard to how the working group has been a working group is supposed to be working, how the working group has actually been working, contributing immensely to the online sessions, to the various consultations with the stakeholders, with experts, with the co-chairs, and the participation of countries across the world in shaping of the agenda for AI for economic growth and social good.
Thank you, Abhishek. And first of all, on behalf of all of us, I think a huge congratulations on what you're pulling off with the summit and the excitement that the summit is creating. It's just amazing. I think this working group, I was very lucky to get two amazing co-chairs. So thank you very much, Ambassador Harry, and of course, Dr. Sarabi, uh, who I think from day one, we were very aligned in how we think about the key objective or the end goal. So when you think about impact, right? If the AI journey till now was all about who can make the biggest models, whose model is more powerful, I have no doubt that 2026 is going to be the year when you will see that pivot, and you will see the discussion move towards where's the impact, where's the returns on our investment. So impact is going to become center stage. And when you think about impact, it's not that good work is not happening. It's not that impact is not getting created. What we found, there are over 30, nearly 30 to 40 countries participating in our working group. And what we found is each one has an amazing story to tell about the kind of impact they're creating in their country. The problem is one, nobody else knows, and two, even within the country, the impact that is being created is being created in pilots, POCs, or mostly in silos. So the big end goal or the problem for this group to solve was what kind of pathways do we need to unlock to move from silos to scale? And that became sort of the mission, vision of this group, that we have to identify the pathways to move from silos to scale. And we'll talk later about the kind of agreements we've come up with, but of engagement we have got, the kind of inputs we have received from multiple countries is fascinating, because on one hand you have very developed nations, on the other hand you have emerging developing nations, but everybody today is struggling to scale impact. Everybody agrees impact is a must do. Everyone is in the same boat. Everyone is struggling to scale impact. So this was a very interesting point of synergy that we found, and that's what we've been working on. And I have to, Abhishek, call out uh, Kushal and Tanvi, because the two of them are the pillars that's holding this group together, and the amazing work they have done to not just drive the meetings, but in between these three meetings, the number of bilateral discussions we've had with countries, the number of stakeholders we have consulted has been just amazing. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Dipjani, for giving that perspective. I have the same question to Ambassador Pave with regard to how is your perspective coming from Netherlands, which is one of the most critical countries for development of this technology with the ASML being stationed there. How do you see this working up group shaping up, and in what ways it can lead to the desired outcomes that Dipjani mentioned?
First of all, thank you very much for India's leadership to start with. I mean, it's an amazing process, and we feel very lucky and privileged to be intimately part of that process. And India's leadership has really taken off very well. and Madam Debjani, who has been our chair, with her team. I don't think there's a sort of a fire in you and in your team that really makes a thing moving forward. And what I like in particular is that it is a very inclusive a process that really gives anyone an opportunity to participate and to contribute. And I think for us it is really to get the impact somewhere, and impact is deliberately chosen, and I think that has been our general goal. For us, it's we should not focus on isolated success stories. We should try to find and compare to scale up and to really help sort of a shared global space to move things forward. And for instance, one of the deliverables that we may be discussing later on is also the common repository that we collect trusted examples of data, tools, and guidances that help things move forward all over the world, and not only in the few perhaps privileged countries. And I think we should move away from that. We should move away from that silo approach that you were mentioning. And I think what India is doing now is really to take leadership in that role. So perhaps I leave it at this for this question at this stage, but I have many more things to say.
Thank you, Ambassador. With this, we come to Professor Sumari, whom we are missing his presence in person, and I must say, you're also missing the mouth-watering cuisine and the rich culture of Lucknow, and hope that we'll be
Yes.
able to see you in person in February. But I would like to hear from you from Indonesia, again a large country with lot of potential of adoption of AI, especially diffusion of AI, and with your rich experience as part of the defense, as part of Air Force, and part of the government policy making, with the research that you are doing. How do you think we can really work towards the objectives of this working group?
Okay. Thank you for your question and good afternoon, everybody. This is ecologists representative from participating countries, also for international organization. Also, Madam Chair, Ms. Debjani, and also my colleagues, co-chair from Netherlands. I'm sorry I cannot attend in person there. I wish I could come there to see you in person. Now, regarding your question, thank you for that question. Um, Actually, in my opinion, it's member country that are participating in this working group. Each one of them has its own perspective on AI for economic growth and social good. So I believe that this country wants the best of the AI implementation to leverage the national economy as well as guarding the social aspect of humankind. So each member country has its own priorities, and I believe each one already has its own pathways or roadmap to achieve them. The step that can be carried out by this working group is to look for the intersection of each one's priorities and pathways to get joint priorities and pathways that can be accepted by all member countries in this working group. So from that, we can move from silo to scale, scale up. That's the opinion from Indonesia.
Thank you. That perspective is very, very relevant. With this, I come back to you, Debjani, from silos to scale. And you have been part of India's digital public infrastructure story. You have contributed to part of being a NASCOM in industry. You've seen how India pioneered, adopt scaling up of several impactful solutions for payments, for identity, for healthcare, agriculture, as part of the DPI story. How do you think that a DPI playbook can be a model for scaling up AI solutions as we build up the AI commons?
I think the most important thing about the DPI playbook are the design principles that shape the DPI: open, trusted, interoperable, ecosystem led, right? Not closed, not proprietary led. And I think that is the secret behind building trusted technologies or trusted solutions, because if you don't have trust, you're never going to achieve scale. And for me, the DPI story is a success primarily because of the core design principles around which it was built. And if you look at it, Abhishek, that those are also the core principles around which you and the government is building India's tech stack, an overall tech solution, right? Even India AI mission, it's about democratizing access to technology. It's democratizing access to the critical resources, compute. No other country is doing that. It's democratizing access to compute. It's democratizing access to data. It's democratizing access to skills, right? If you look at all the seven pillars of India AI mission, that's what it really is doing for India and therefore enabling India leapfrog. So if we can apply those principles of trusted technology that builds trusted technology to artificial intelligence, I think that's what's going to be the biggest unlock for scale. How do you create ecosystem led solutions where it's not about one country or two countries, but where everyone has a voice? And that's been one of the biggest objectives of this working group, ensuring that everyone's voice is heard, right? Everyone's ideas are heard. And the surprising thing was when we opened it up and when we heard everyone out, actually everyone is saying the same thing, right? There weren't any big differences. Everyone was talking about literally maybe the language is different, but the same problems and the need for same solutions. So it was really interesting to see how bringing the entire ecosystem together, making it inclusive, and I would say interoperable because there were so many different ideas that were sort of cross pollinating, at least in the thinking behind the commons. So yeah, it all goes back to those design principles for me. And how do we apply that now to AI?
Bringing the ecosystem together, ensuring participation, and ensuring collaboration across stakeholders, across countries, across ecosystems. And who better to dwell on this subject than Ambassador Warrior? Because we have seen how whether it's chip design, wherein one company from Netherlands, ASML, with their lithographic machines, collaborating with chip designers from world over, manufacturing fabs in other geographies come together. Similarly, AI is also a multi-country, multi-stakeholder technology. So, given your expertise, your perspective, how do you think? What are the opportunities for various countries to collaborate in leveraging AI for economic growth, for social good, and for ensuring that we work towards together with shared partnerships, shared platforms?
Thank you. I first wanted to say I'm completely aligned with my chairperson who has very adequately and precisely mentioned what this working group is all about. I think we should move from the abstract to the concrete, and we should not be doing overly dramatical about things. I mean, it's also just go to work and make things happen. And I think India and surely also a few other countries have shown, and you mentioned DeepStack, but this is really practical things moving forward, which I think is important because then others will just jump on the bandwagon and work with it. I think AI is also a very practical thing. It is something that adds as an instrument to anybody's lives, to the industry, to government. And it has helped in certain public sectors, for instance, health, as we've all seen this morning, but also on social services and others, that and agriculture, for instance, that you can make a huge progress by just applying the instrument. We need to continue to discuss on the strategic level for ages and ages, but really have to deep dive. And I think our working group has really tried to make that, to make it concrete, to also ensure that this shared common place helps people to learn, to replicate, to actually copy perhaps even, but in any case, also ensure credibility and legitimacy for their processes. So I think we've done, a very important step together, and I hope it will translate also into the leaders' document in February.
Thank you. Shared priorities, bringing in credibility and legitimacy. That's very important when we look at scaling up AI solutions. When we look at diffusion. So I come to you, Professor Somari. From your experience, how can AI help strengthen the institutional effectiveness and decision making? And what considerations you think would be important to ensure that such deployments ultimately contribute to the larger social objectives? And how could these objectives be kind of further strengthened and met by the global impact commons that we are trying to work towards through this working group?
Yes, thank you for the question. This is an easy question, but it's not easy to answer. Anyway, right. Theoretically, AI can strengthen the institutional effectiveness and decision making. Therefore, it would be good to hear experiences from member countries of this working group, how they implement AI for their priorities, the impacts and also the challenges, as well as the consideration they have undertaken of implementing AI to become our lesson learned. And as I mentioned about, this working group should seek the intersection of AI implementation among all member countries that participating in this working group to be formulated into global AI impact commons and agree together. This is my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you. Contributing, all countries contributing to the global AI impact commons,
Yeah.
so that this becomes like a common shared repository which all of us can not only contribute but benefit from it also. With this,
Yes.
I think I have some time to open up for a few questions from the audience. Do we have any? We do have a packed schedule with the working group closed door meeting beginning at 5, and we have a panel after this. So it's, 5 minutes. So we can take maybe two questions. Yeah, Ravi. So the question was that how is India AI mission helping it strengthen the states for creating their own roadmaps for adoption of AI in whatever technical implementation that they do. I guess you have directed the question to me. Oh, I thought as a moderator I am supposed to ask and not answer. But I will just give you, for example, from what was done in the inaugural. You just saw the Honorable Chief Minister's address, and therein, what he emphasized was that the state will be launching a state AI mission. And the way the state is conceptualizing the state AI mission is that leverage the common elements being built by India AI mission and build on top of it. And what are the common elements? The compute layer, the datasets layer through AI Ghosh, and the foundational model layer. So these three are needed for anyone to build applications. Instead of every state investing into compute or a dataset platform or building foundation models, leverage the common elements and build on top of it. So this layer becomes like this, this layer along with a becomes like something like a UPI for AI. So just like Government of India for the digital public infrastructure built Aadhaar, built UPI, built DigiLocker, and different applications could ride on that. Similarly, this common layer of compute data sets and models can become a platform on which innovative solutions in healthcare, education, agriculture can be built in the languages of the choice of the state, and they can be replicated. And so, most states are following the same strategy. UP announced today, Gujarat is doing, Rajasthan is doing, Maharashtra is doing with Mahavistar and other projects. So that's the template that we would like to work with the states with. Yes, Madan.
Thank you for fantastic conversation. When we are all hurtling towards the India AI Impact Summit, maybe one question to the chair and the co-chair. If you were to define success 1 year down the line for this working group in terms of action and outcomes of the group, what would be the one or two of the top definitions or measurements that we could look at?
So, as part of the outcome of this working group, we are looking to create um, um, AI Commons, right? Which is, think of it like a repository that brings together not just impact stories from around the world, but more importantly, the tools and resources that are required to scale it, right? And also trying to institutionalize a mechanism to recognize the best impact created. so that we can shift the needle from just building the infrastructure to actually making the infrastructure work for you to create the impact. So I guess if I look 1 year down the line, for me personally, success would be our two outcomes that I talked about. The processes get institutionalized. So it's not just in India that is talking about, uh, its idols to scale or recognition, but the whole world is. And if we can get, uh, collective wisdom into the AI commons, where countries are not just using it, but countries are contributing voluntarily to support it, and it becomes an ecosystem on its own. I think for me, that is what success would look like.
Would you like to add something, Ambassador?
Yeah, very briefly, and thank you for the question. First of all, I just also wanted to say what a great place Lucknow is. To be quite honest, this place of a mere 5.5 million people, I had not heard about before, and it's beautiful. So congratulations. And I think this center of study, this center of academia, I think this is really should be an AI center, I believe. So if there's one goal, I think we should all aim for that. Lucknow becomes one of those centers in the future. But coming back to your question, I just wanted to say that for me, it is important, and that's why we are deeply involved in this, and why we're so happy that India invited us. Is I think that we should involve different regions, that we see that all over the world people get involved, that there is an emergent ecosystem that is transparent and open, and finally that public and private partners truly work together. I think that's another overlooked issue, and I think especially for governmental decision making. Of course, I'm not speaking about my neighbor who knows all about it, but there's so many others who have no idea in governmental positions, politicians, for instance. And this is going to take such a flight. It's going to get so much span that everyone should be involved. I think our goal is to get them involved.
Thank you. Thank Ambassador Varve. Ambassador, Professor Sumari, would you like to add something?
May you repeat your question, please?
What would success look like a year from now for this working group?
Oh, okay, thank you. This is the answer also. But what we want from this working group is this working will sustain. Yes, because this working group already works for two deliverables. One is AI common impact, the second one AI impact award, and that's very important for the work. So we hope that this working group will be successful, and it's not just stop. I mean, just finish the only one in this summit, but also will be continued for the next summit and the for in other countries, and we hope that these two deliverables can be brought to the next summit. So it will be continued year by year. That's what we want. That, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sumari. And with this, I must we come to the end of this fireside chat. We have other panels following up around after this. So I must conclude by thanking Debjani, Ambassador Varve, Professor Sumari for this discussion, deliberations, ideas, thoughts, how to build scalable platforms, how to make them open, how to make them uh, transparent, interoperable, how to learn from what has been done across the world, think of contributing to the global AI commons, think of recognizing disruptive efforts towards which this working group is concluding towards. And I'm sure the deliberations today in the panel after and in the main working group meeting at 5 today will further help us concretize these ideas into outcome documents, into actionable items. Because one thing that we have been warned against right from the beginning of conceptualization of this summit by our honorable prime minister and everyone, that this summit and the sessions and the working group should not be mere talking shops. Think of outcomes which you can identify, quantify, and measure over the next period. And this working group has been contributing towards this objective, clear cut objectives about whether setting up global AI commons or instituting a global impactful award or trying to come out with other measures which brings together the collective expertise that exists in the world and to create a scenario in which we can really enable AI to contribute to economic growth. And when this happens, AI for economic growth and social good, ultimately it will benefit almost all the tech companies which are building frontier AI models. The one question that is very often asked is that with so much of investment going into compute, into energy, into building such models, trillions of dollars being invested, where will the returns come from? The returns will come from ultimately what this working group is going to recommend. If this working group's recommendations and the pathways and the action plan that comes out, if it results in economic growth, if it results in benefit to countries, to companies, ultimately that will be the payback for the investment that is happening in this sector. So to that object, one of the most, as I mentioned in the beginning, most of the impactful working groups which will benefit almost all the key stakeholders. So with that, I thank all my co-panelists, Debjani, Ambassador Verve, and Professor Mari once again, and look forward to the deliberations that follow after this. Thank you.
Uh, if I may request everyone to just stay back. Uh, we want to just pass on the mementos as well. For that I invite Ms. Kavita Bhatia, Chief Operating Officer, India, to facilitate. Uh,
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we move forward, I would like to invite Sri Anurag Yadav, the Principal Secretary of IT for Government of Uttar Pradesh, to come and share his thoughts. Thank you. Lovely meeting you all in this hall in Lucknow. So,
On behalf of Department of IT in the state of UP, I welcome you for this working group session, which has already started. We had a lively interactive session. In the morning, we had our Honorable Chief Minister who announced UP's AI mission today. And it was just not a announcement without any foundation, but it was backed with various other objectives and goals which has been decided. And one of that has been putting a finance real requirement also. So he has earmarked 2,000 crore. I mean, we were like, okay, so what is to do now? Because uh, honestly, in states, the I mean, we see or we look up to the what we say in international parlance, federal regime, or in our arrangements, we say central government. So central government is usually the engine, and we all follow. I mean, most of the time it has been there. Some of the initiatives too have been there in the states related to IT, but primarily when it comes to making a larger national priority, it's led by government of India, and its states are supposed to follow that responsibility shoulder to shoulder. We are happy, we are excited, we look up to. I mean, in the morning I use the word dream. So we look up to the dream of Impact AI Summit translating into action for transforming lives of millions of people. And it's important for us in the state of UP because we are not only the largest populous state as such, but also we hold the, I would say, the grand potential of taking India forward. So if UP moves, nation will definitely move. I mean, there is nothing which can stop. If others move, probably you might think whether nation will move or not. But if UP moves, you cannot say that India is not moving. So anything which is supposed to be the scale national level or international level impact, I would say UP has that potential because of being simple algorithm, fourth largest nation if it had been a nation. So it's very important for us, and I'm happy that the theme or the focus of this working group is something which is very important for a state like Uttar Pradesh. I wish all the best for every participant who is going to be part of this exercise, and we are looking forward for the recommendations to follow in the state. Thank you so much for coming and being part of this event. Thank you.
All right. We're going to be continuing our session with two panels back to back. These panels will largely discuss the outcomes that have been worked on by the economic growth and social good track. So to start our first panel, I'd like to introduce the session for today, which is the Global AI Impact Commons. This will largely discuss the models, infrastructure, compute, data that are necessary for building that AI diffusion layer that will allow social impact to truly happen. And to moderate this session, I'd like to invite Shalini Kapoor, Chief AI Strategist of EkStep Foundation, up to the stage. For panelists along with her is His Excellency Mr. Harry Verwey, Ambassador at Large Government of Netherlands, Professor Nitin Saxena, Dean of Wadhwani School of AI, IIT Kanpur, Pooja Goyal, Founding CEO of the Udayti Foundation, and Suhail Bidani, Lead Data and AI, Gates Foundation, India. Over to you, Shalini.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. And a beautiful AI session in the in the beautiful Lucknow, I would say. So very interesting, and especially for me, I actually did my engineering from Lucknow, so I know the bylanes of Hazratganj very well, and it's great to be back here. Um, Thank you and welcome to all the panelists. Each one of you definitely are working in a lot of sectors of AI as well as depths of AI across the country, and and as outlined by our chair Debjani on the social commons, that AI social commons which need to be put in place, which can create impact for the citizens, for the people. And when the impact comes, it comes because there's a purpose. The AI use cases which need to be in place for a purpose and have pathways defined so that they can actually go to scale. There are a lot of AI pilots, but then what takes it to scale is what we should be discussing today in the Impact Commons, so that people can learn from each other. People can build on top of each other and work on a network of the vertical sectors and horizontal science in AI, and which makes AI itself move ahead. So today, when we talk about Impact Commons, it is about a lot of AI resources. It could be data, it could be compute, it could be methodologies, it could be learnings that we have, and how do we share all of them together while also maintaining global compatibility. And that's what we will discuss. So let's explore the theme of what will constitute the AI Commons and what are the use cases which bring value to people. And to that, I'll go to Suhail. You are at the end sitting that side. So let's just get started from you, Suhail. Um, so you work across health, across livelihoods, across education. You have seen so many use cases, and I see you're talking about the AI life cycle of use cases. So can you just explain that what should be the right use cases in terms of impact that should be included?
Thank you. And first of all, great gathering and nice to see the working group meeting happening here. Uh, this is a place I started my development sector journey. So I have a close connection to Lucknow in that sense. Uh, Coming to your question, I mentioned this in the health AI panel as well. We first of all need to look at the problem statements that matter to us in the country. And similarly for any other country globally where we talk about, right? So we just need to be very clear on what problem statements are we trying to solve for. AI may not be the answer for everything, but where it is, I think it's an opportunity for us to look at uh, simplifying it in a manner where the utility is seen by the user and not something which is being pushed from an administration standpoint. That's what we've clearly seen has succeeded when we look at the use case itself. We work across as Gates Foundation, um, healthcare, education, agriculture, livelihoods. And across all these areas, if I have to highlight now which are the use cases where we are seeing some clear utility and scale up happen, um, things with images on the healthcare side, using it for screening, one clear area, workflow efficiencies, uh, voice-based uh, generative AI use cases, just to drive the inclusion agenda as well, clearly seeing utility. Agriculture from the advisory services standpoint. Similarly, for education on the assessment side, livelihood is very interesting because it started with uh, a lot of the data annotation work which was being carried out in the country, uh, creating a new set of livelihood opportunities. And many of us may have heard about this operation called Karya, which created a very different value proposition itself around it. But all that is now evolved to a different level, which includes discoverability, newer skill set. Uh, we've learned a lot in the last 2 3 years. Now the idea is through the AI Commons effort under this working group, can we bring that learning together? Can we get those use cases together and offer it to the rest of the world? Uh, any country willing to share some of the success stories with other countries, uh, very happy to get them involved in the AI Commons. At the Gates Foundation level, we try and do that in the across the geographies that we work in, whether it's within the country or across different continents. Uh, it will be useful for more and more such efforts to be brought together and then give options for various stakeholders and users to adopt anything which is relevant for them, contextualize at their end as well. But more importantly, try and avoid reinventing the wheel every single time. Also.
Sure, thank you. I think you brought in a very good point of utility and the use. And I'll come to you, Harry. See, on one side there is utility, which like what Sohail mentioned about, and there is on the other side there is innovation. You have to do the AI innovation. Um, and when we say utility, there has to be trust. There has to be inclusion of the people. So, how do you think the global use cases are shaping up across these two aspects?
Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation. I think it's very insightful. What I just wanted to share with you is a thought that has to do with the balance that you were mentioning between innovation and public trust and inclusion. And we do see this balance most clearly in use cases that are embedded in public interest sectors, such as health and agriculture. I just mentioned it before in social services. We have, for instance, decided to ask for a side event in February on agri-tech, agriculture. This is one of the major sectors here in India that requires huge attention. And we have, traditionally, agriculture is one of our major sectors in the economy as well as an export sector. So we feel that AI has so much to offer to these sectors. So these successful examples tend to involve public authorities, researchers, and end users from the very start, rather than treating a trust, as it were, as an afterthought. You have to really build that up from the very outset. Transparency about how systems work, what data is used, and where human oversight remains key to building acceptance. So never let the machine go ahead of us humans. And finally, what I wanted to share is that many of the most inclusive innovations come from local contexts, where solutions are designed around real constraints and community needs. And I said earlier, sometimes AI is also a very practical thing. I mean, it also evolves bottom up. And we really have to listen to needs of agricultural communities, to small companies, to small communities. So I hope this responds to your question, but that is how we look at it.
You're sharing the mic. Okay, I think from the global, let's get into the heart of UP, and I'll come to you, Pooja. I know your team has been working within UP on various use cases and specifically for the advancement of women. Uh, can you tell us that what are the impact use cases which can actually help the last mile, the citizens, and specifically the in the asymmetric world, when people are left out, like women, how does it, how do you help it?
So, we are talking about AI for economic growth. I think the inclusive part of it is very important. And when I think about women participating in the formal economy, the challenge has been there have been three big structural barriers. One is barrier on the infrastructure side. Data is one of them. Uh, Housing, mobility, safe and affordable mobility, safety. The second big uh, uh, pillar is around policy. Some of the policies that hold women back. And the third is supply and demand side barriers. So, demand side barriers in companies around hiring, retention, advancement of women. And in each of these pillars, there are multiple use cases, but I'll talk about one specifically, which we've been, thanks to the focus by the UP government and the planning department, we've been able to work a lot on the data layer of it. So, of the three layers, the data, compute, and the model, on the data side, one of the things we did was we looked at about 100 plus schemes that impact women and collected data from 21 line departments. And the big problem is that gender disaggregated data itself is not available for decision making. When you are making decisions, the people who are making decisions, they do not have the data at their fingertips. Um, So what we did was, as we looked at these 21 line departments, collected this information. Based on that, there are now, we've been able to rank 75 districts and created something called Women's Economic Empowerment Index. And every district now gets a score. And you can see which schemes are being used in which district. So now there is a uniform data layer available across districts and across departments to be able to say, okay, here are the three things that we need to do in order to improve participation of women. And there are all of those 100 plus schemes that are enabling that. So that is something that we have now rolled out, and now at a district level and at a department level, we are beginning to act on some of those issues. One of the things I want to talk about is, for example, uh, bus conductors, women bus conductors. There were very few women bus conductors, and when some of this data was being presented in some of the meetings, that was highlighted as a point. In 1 year, a target, and this time, the number of bus conductors that have been hired is 10 times. Women bus conductors is 10 times that of last year. They had to change a lot of processes to enable that, but that is the power of a common data layer that is available across districts and departments to make
Sure. Thank you, Pooja. That's really a great example and a very great story of how information asymmetry exists, and if it's connected, if the data linkages are built in, how it can benefit people. And I think there's a lot of effort needed to put and get those linkages, because many times people don't share data itself, right? That itself becomes a big bottleneck. So thank you. And Professor Nitin, you are, like, in the sitting in the heart of UP and working on research. Uh, so what would be your use cases which you have seen, say, at IIT Kanpur, working on them, and you think that they can impact and they can be part of our this global impact commons that we are thinking of. So we would like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation here. It's very entertaining and very enlightening. Uh, so we in IIT Kanpur in my center have been actually developing many AI products, uh, which are mainly for government agencies. These are real problems, and we don't just stop at development, but we get these things deployed. And in one of our products, maybe billions of users are using it. So it is called the Intelligent Grievances Management System. So this IGMS is actually a system which is used by all the ministries, all the departments of the central government, and potentially state government and ULBs can also use it. These urban local bodies, and so there are many such examples. Now I'll just tell you one common thing, common feature amongst these. It is that uh, there is most impact using an AI solution when you are solving a problem which will be very laborious even for the experts to solve. So if experts can solve it easily, then you should not use AI. But if there is laborious even for 10 experts, then using AI you can have an impact. So for example, there are hundreds of thousands of grievances which are being submitted by the citizens. They may be written by hand, they may be typed, they may be in English or Hindi or any other language, and it has to be officer has to read it and classify it according to the content. Now, this even with hundreds of officers is very hard to do, because one has to go through the complaint, one has to understand what is being said. Many times, the complainant is only giving a rant. It's only a rant against the government or against the department. So, what exactly is the problem? One has to actually read and understand. And then you have to do it in 10 languages and in many kinds of modes. So, these kind of things AI is very good at. So our system within seconds can classify the grievance, and then it is according to the classification, it is pushed to the departments. So instead of departments pulling out the complaints out of 50,000 or 100,000, now the complaints is being pushed onto the department. So this is something which even experts cannot solve, human experts cannot solve. So AI actually helps and then it is impactful. The other example is we did it for one state which has around 40 million citizens. So they gave us the data of the citizens and we had to estimate the income. Now this again, if you hire experts, human experts, looking through the data of 40 million citizens and giving estimates for income, it's very hard. It's very laborious at least. So this is where again AI methods do this in various rounds. We get feedback, we can do a survey, we can improve the model, and uh, we can be confident that the income estimation range is good. Uh, so I would not suggest AI use of AI for critical and legal problems, but for problems which are laborious to do and there is no criticality, there is no legality, I think there it's best to use AI. And scale of problems in India is huge. So in India, we actually keep getting many problems from various government agencies, which we keep solving.
So I'm really thinking, if grievance redressal is done and given to citizens, I mean, so many problems will get resolved, and if also enabled by voice bots, right? You can talk in your language, Hindi, even various kinds of Hindis, and then it gets resolved because you have a question and someone is answering it as well. So it sounds like magic, definitely. But also, I'm thinking about the reusability of it, right? I mean, for example, the language, you make it in grievance redressal in Hindi, but suppose it has to be applied into Marathi, what kind of problems come up. So I would just like all of us to think about reusability of the AI, that of the use cases that we create, and how can we make them reusable, especially when we are thinking of building the global AI impact commons. Because the idea is to not just across regions in India, but also in different countries. How do you make it scale? How do you make it reusable? And with that, I'd like to ask a question to Ambassador, that when you see the scale happening across borders, what do you think should be adaptable? What are the changes that we need to do so that it actually is applicable across borders? It could be across Europe itself. Every country is like the same thing, like the secretary was talking about. In India, like, UP is the fourth nation, maybe, right? So what we have across states is across countries, different languages, different changes that you need to do. So how do you think we can make it reusable? And we share.
Thank you. This is a huge question that I here I cannot, respond to in detail. But I think AI in itself is transboundary and is both perhaps dividing people as well as uniting people, and keep ahead of the machine. I think the trust that is best supported by what I would call light governance, in a sort of clearly which will, for instance, separate technical validation from political decision making. Make sure that it has a sort of a legal life of its own. Shared principles combined with local flexibility make it easier to adapt solutions across different legal and cultural systems. Um, um, Independent evaluation and peer review help create confidence without slowing innovation. And what I feel is important, and I thought I mentioned something before in this room as well, is that you need to be inclusive and make governments, academia, industry, and civil society play a role in it. And also, these organizations like civil society and industry are transparent as well. So make cross-border sharing more legitimate and sustainable. So that is my take.
Sure, thank you so much. So, sometimes there is an AI promise, but on the ground, reality is very different. And Pooja, I would like your inputs into that. What are the discoveries? Like you talked about data being there, but what are the discoveries on ground that you see, which sometimes question the promise of AI, or you think they are aligned? I mean, I just want to know your.
Yeah. So I think AI as a um, it is moving from being just an enabling infrastructure to being part of the core design process.
And I'll go to what Debjani talked about when we're designing it for you, the fundamental principles of open, trusted that you have to go to. So when I talk, so let me give an example of a woman entrepreneur. There are 49 million women entrepreneurs in the country today, and only 600,000 in urban areas employ one more person besides themselves. They are largely self-employed. So what there is no aspiration gap. They want to build it big. There are resources. There are so many schemes. Every state has a scheme for a women entrepreneur. The big challenge is the gap between access. How do you access that information at the right time? So when you think about entrepreneurship, what is that fundamental principle? It is self-efficacy. If you the self-efficacy, and it can be driven by three parts, right? One is vicarious through role models. If she can do it in my cluster, in my district, means and guidance. Even if you get like a little bit of a means to do it, a bicycle, you are able to then build on top of it. And the third is mastery, step by step mastery. You to get this right, and then you go to the next level. Now, if you think about it, AI can meet all of those, whether it is as long as the data is there. And I'm talking about the LLM part of it right now, where now you have role models that have already done it. You can look at all of the schemes that you can now access. And because of the vernacular voice bots, now it transcends language as well. So that ability to take the challenge on the ground and be able to say, okay, what is the fundamental crux of it, and build on top of it is what can make it scalable.
No, very relevant, and thanks for bringing out the entrepreneur example. In fact, we did experiments here in UP where we said that what do entrepreneurs look for when they want to expand their business, and you talked about access. And what we figured out is that what they're doing is they're just doing chat gpt and finding out where do I export. And then we said, okay, let's make an agentic AI tool and make them ask questions which are relevant. First of all, understand what those questions are, mine them, like what Professor Nitin you talked about. And then we created a system for cane manufacturers in Bareilly that, if they have, like, say, export of say 40 lakhs, and they want to go to new markets, and they want to find out, can I sell it to Poland? Or can I just sell it to different parts, maybe Chennai itself? And we got really interesting answers. The answers were that, they loved the tool because it is giving them market access, exactly what you talked about. And that's where, and they didn't know that they are using AI, because for them, either they were talking to like ChatGPT initially, but now they are talking to an intelligent bot system which is helping them give answers in their context, personalized to their business, what they're talking about. So
One more point there, Shalini. We already have last mile mobility here. So, especially in the women's case, there are 6 cadres of women who are actually reaching homes in villages. Whether it is Vidyut Sakhi or Jal Sakhi, Samu Sakhi, banking correspondent, Udyam Sakhi. So, if we have the technology and we can enable some of these people, then the point that Nitin makes, something that is simple to do, like which requires scale, which requires large numbers, that is where we should apply it. And so, if we can really train some of these Sakhis, then there will be a coach in every village who can answer all of those questions that they are currently battling.
again proves the point that we need to work together more. But I would go to you, Suhail, that, how do you think philanthropy can help build in this, that it needs data stewardship, it needs translation between different, there are so many stakeholders involved to make it to the, last mile, as well as keep deep, you need deep tech innovation. So we would like to know from you.
Sure. I mean, if you look at how typically philanthropies work, the role of any philanthropic organization predominantly has been be a catalyst towards achieving the scale. Scale comes with government, that is without any doubt, right? I don't think it changes significantly in the AI context. It still remains pretty much the same. Are we able to catalyze few things uh, and work closely with government stakeholders who then are able to scale up things? There is possibly two, three newer areas which I think are emerging where philanthropic capital could be leveraged. One is, in a very typical uh, capitalist sense, the viability gap funding, where the initial seed money required to start off something may not exist, or to pilot certain things may not exist. Can we just help with some of that, especially when we talk about from a larger AI commons goals standpoint? And I know Nakul from Wadhwani AI Global is here, so he will talk about how some of these use cases need to be taken to other geography also require some initial support. So all that can come in through philosophic capital. Uh, the other aspect which I see mostly coming from, I call them the next generation of philanthropists, who have just redefined impact investment, and especially in the context of AI, whether it's the information asymmetry being solved for, or some of the that we are wanting to see, especially upstream on the R&D side, being supported by these organizations with a clear intent that anything that comes out is the public good. So that is another role that I feel philanthropic capital does provide. And finally, I feel given the general resource constraints that the global south is going to see for the foreseeable future, at least, uh, the role to leverage AI is a very important one in our view, uh, with respect to the development goals of a country or any region. How do we bring more and more into the existing, whether it's a health system or education system or anything else, is going to be a critical responsibility for organizations like ours and the larger philosophy system.
Sure. So, thanks, Suhail. So, when we're talking about reusability, I would like to ask you, Professor Nitin, that what parts we need to standardize, especially when we are creating this global AI impact commons, and what part of the stack can be standardized, which some part cannot be because you have to take care of the local context as well. So, what has been your, your discoveries in this area?
Yeah, thank you. So I think Pooja has already answered the question. It is about the data standards. I mean, and specifically in India, because all my clients are in India. So there is a huge problem in just interpreting what the theta is and what it should be. So that is the hardest problem, at least the clients we work with, which are all big government agencies. Uh, so because the problem is that maybe the digitization process is not yet over in India. So many of these, especially when you go to a district, to a city, the digitization process is not over. So the data is not really digital. So they want to jump on the AI bandwagon when they have not even completed the digitization phase. So, which in my view is actually good because now AI will force them to digitize and digitize quickly, because if they want us to analyze the data, they have to first store it in a proper format. And it's not just about format, it's also about at the end of our projects, we always end up advising the government client that, well, if this is the answer you want, then this is what you should start with. So for this output, you should have this input. I mean, if you want income estimation, then just by looking at electricity bill, we can only give so much of precision. I mean, we need also consumer data. What is the consumption? What exactly is the property value? So the property values are also not very clear in India because the circle rates may be very outdated, and the property may have become much more expensive now. So many of these things are actually not available, and even when they are available, they are not stored in the correct way. It's very hard to. I mean, what will be funny coming from Holland, if you hear this, that here when we look at the data across 3-4 databases, even the names change because the spellings are not standardized. So the Excel files are in English or CSV file is in English. So Balvinder will have 10 different spellings and it's the same person. Now, how do I find out whether it's the same person? So we actually find many hacks to identify that this name is of the same person. So so in summary, data standard is the biggest issue if you want to use AI in India, and everything else is, I think, much less important. Everything else can be done. I mean, startups, once the data is given, startups can do the modeling. So that's not a very hard exercise. And hardware, India is not manufacturing. So anyways, hardware you are going to import. So all you can do is actually you can complete your digitization properly. I mean, first you decide, okay, what is it that you want? Uh, what are the what is the information you want to deduce about your population, and accordingly you collect data and you store it and you make it available. That, I think, is the most important.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing this part out, because yes, the data brings the localization, but data is the toughest part. And in fact, I was reading a recent paper on making AI. It's again a paper, research paper in Archive, which is about Croissant. Croissant is a system which makes you know data ML ready, simple systems. But then how do you do the linkages between, say, a Balwinder to Balwinder could be just a description saying a young guy, a young Sikh of 30 years old, right? So how do you do graph representations of this? So there are, I think, these problems while research happens, and how do we adapt it to the actual problems on the ground? That's the bridge that we really need to build. So I would like to know from you, Ambassador Harry, that do you think that these global research standards, global innovation which happen, how do the global south adopt it? What is translatable and what is not? It's a, we see a lot of things in the global north, but what is it that we can kind of build together on the ground?
I would have a counter question to you. What is the global south? And what is the global south in the context of AI? I really wonder whether we can really divide the world into north and south in this context. I'm not quite sure whether you agree with me, but I feel that so many leadership initiatives and so many developments have also been generated from countries which we generally call the global south, be it Rwanda, Chile, or Vietnam. Things have happened. And I think, to really make that work, we have to work towards a true partnership. I think that is the major thing, and it will not be easy because it sounds very easy to get a strong partnership working. But this very working group has really, I think, achieved under Madam Debjani's leadership this. Working groups or to the summit in February or basically larger to the world. And I think it has generally resonated in any case with the participants in this working group. So it means what is called co-creation. And I think, it's based on leadership, it's based on knowledge, it's based on experience. I think that is what makes it work. And it doesn't really matter where you're from. When you talk about leaderships, what we generally call the global south, I think there is perhaps a sort of responsibility also for the global north to support wherever we can by making networks accessible, funding accessible, creating space for mutual learning, but to make sure that it is not just a one-way transfer. It must be, a two-way street. I think that is what we have to do. So it's by connections in academia, it's by connections in industries, by connections with journalism, and it's in connection with government. And I think this effort really, helps. And my experience in the working group is that we cannot divide it either global south or global north.
We need to change the definition because the asymmetry is moving. It's moving. Okay, thanks. Suhail, I'll come to you, and if you can talk about some of the biggest barriers of AI adoption, because AI adoption and the concept of diffusion, which says that you have to go to the last mile, it has to include people. The scale has to come in, and where do you think the maximum adoption challenges are?
Yeah. So assuming there is some solution out there for a particular problem statement. The scale has continued to be a challenge for two, three reasons. One, very clearly on the cost side, is the inference cost that you have to still pay, especially if you're depending on large language model and compute infrastructure requirement exists. It is significant. Uh, I'll come to some things that are being done to address, but just to list down few critical ones. I think if you look at sectors like health, then the validation testing piece is also a critical challenge. Uh, when you look at the capacity building efforts of the users, that also is a continuing challenge. I think a lot of these are being addressed by various countries, including India, through the IndiaAI mission. But what is required is a more concentrated effort of sharing resources, pooling in some of the learning, and I believe AI Commons, uh, or at least the working group outcomes, are leading towards some of this to be shared with each other, and which is why I am excited on what this working group is leading towards. And all credit to all the coaches. Um, One final thing which I would just uh, want to talk about very quickly is the scale is also about how do we look at uh, it being embedded within the system and the process itself, because it can't be an isolated effort or an isolated set of options. Embedding within existing systems has to be consciously looked at and early stage, not retrospective. I'll pause.
Great, thank you. And I think embedding into the systems is the biggest challenge because institutions have to change, and institutions adopting it and thinking that human is included within the AI and not just the other way around is really important. So, Pooja, from your any learnings from your side on this?
Personally, I can say the biggest barrier is it's moving so fast. By the time I kind of master one workflow and I say I can apply AI to this workflow, some new technology has come. But from the end user perspective, I think the big challenge is the access and awareness of these tools. So our team has been working on a pilot in a few of the districts to get women job ready, and the use of AI for just things like CV uploading, CV creation, being able to create a cover note, apply, also knowledge of what are the platforms available for those kind of jobs. That's been extremely useful. But how do you make sure that they have awareness of those tools and technologies, and how do you provide access to that?
Thanks. Um, Professor Nitin, any last closing words on this? That how we can adopt the systems, adapt to humans, and change at the last mile. And are these the only adoption challenges, or you think there are more?
No, I think all, most important points have been discussed. It is about once, I mean, if you want to join the AI bandwagon, then you should have an idea of what is it that you want in the output, and accordingly, uh, the whole policy, the way the office works, the workflow, the way that data is collected, and then the way it is shared, all these things have to be decided accordingly. Because if those basic ingredients are not there, then the AI will also be useless. I mean, the answers that it will give will have no utility. So chat GPT many times, because I am partly also a mathematician, so many times the students, what they ask chat GPT to prove, the proofs are wrong. So it gives very confident answers, but this it's all actually it, it it is, I mean, you can see that it has just hallucinated and reached the answer, skipping the whole middle step. So this is exactly what will happen if you are using an AI tool just for the sake of it, because you attended an AI summit. Then the tool will give you junk answers and it will not be useful. So I think with the AI, you have to change the other background things which are necessary.
Okay, so last, I think we'd like to just close the panel. If let's just do a small rapid fire. What is the most thing you're looking forward to in the AI summit? And don't tell me, Sohail, that rest. after that.
Actually, I'm actually very excited about the AI in arts and culture, to be very honest, which is going to launch at 15th. But the focus on impact itself is the most exciting part now, because we've been talking about AI for the last few years. Now is the real time when we demonstrate what impact it can
Yeah, knowing what DPI has done for the country, I think this, for me, also that how how non-linearly can you build on top of that using the power of AI and using the power of AI Commons.
Uh, yeah, so since chair has used the word repository in the context of global AI Commons, so I would be more interested in uh, when looking at the opportunity or whether it is possible, the possibility of creating a data market. So that's the the problem is philosophical, or it's of an attitude that organizations and especially individuals look at data as identity, while to use AI and to give models correct information, it will be more helpful if you see data as property, because property is something which you can sell and you can buy. So, for example, banks, they take private wealth and then they grow it by investing it somewhere else. So the same view should be kept for data. Data should not be seen as identity which somebody can steal or somebody can impersonate. It should be seen as property which you should be allowed to sell, and then you should know that you are selling it. You should know what you are getting in return. And so, if this data market is available, it can be used within India. It can be used outside, and there is a whole architecture actually we can design around it. That there will be this quality preserving databases. There will be these model providers who will actually test on whatever is available, and then there will be a, let's say, a benchmarking platform where it will record what are the best models for this particular problem. So there can be a whole market created, and then it will be kind of a global AI commons because it won't be restricted to one geography.
I hope some students of yours or some entrepreneurs are listening and actually making what you're saying.
Thank you. In line with the previous speakers and rapid fire, I jotted down a few notes. One is keeping governance light but trustworthy. So the comment is open, neutral, and credible. Making the platform accessible in practice across languages, regions, and levels of capacity. Connecting with comparable platforms. We haven't discussed that, but it is extremely important to share use cases and knowledge that can strengthen similar initiatives on a worldwide scale while reducing the risk of duplication. That is, I think, what the summit is also about. And finally, and above all, using the commons to move from isolated pilots to solutions that deliver impact at scale. These are my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. Thanks. And I am looking forward to how it comes together. How, it's a big sagar manthan happening of use cases. What's the Amrit which comes out? I'm looking forward to that. So thank you all of you for being there today. Thank you for all the panelists for traveling all over from India to be here, and hope. Oh, sorry, we have some questions.
Hi, I am an absolutely intriguing session. I am Dr. Linda, and I head, because I belong to the incubation ecosystem of this state, I head the incubation center of Integral University, wherein we are not just incubating startups but also self-help groups. And the discussion was about livelihood and about entrepreneurship. We are incubating several self-help groups who already turned their ideas into micro enterprises, and startups are generating revenue of 35 crores. We work closely. The startup works closely with Women on Wings from Netherlands, from with PUM in Netherlands, and so many other organizations. ask that how can the commons integrate into the university-led incubation models as to empower grassroots innovators in India and across the global south? That is my question, and I can't actually pinpoint who specifically would answer, but uh, depends on maybe whoever wishes to throw the insight on this.
Where would you like to talk about this? That how the universities can be part of the AI impact fund?
Yeah, I think building that network is going to be critical, and whether it's the incubation center that you are talking about, or even center of excellences that are emerging in the country, the AI hubs in Africa, similar initiatives elsewhere in the world. Uh, if the goals and objectives are similar and like-minded organizations exist, we should use the summit extensively for facilitating these networks to get formed, because that's the starting point. I mean, once that is done, I'm sure this could go in different ways and different pathways may emerge. But that's the starting point.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, great discussion. Just quickly, one question. We've been speaking about LLMs and generative AI, but it seems that the window to AGI is pretty close, looking at about 4 to 5 years. So, where are we on that? Have we started to reimagine the future? And yeah, so your thoughts on that? We already started to reimagine the future, and how are we planning to actually de-risk this? So, those are the two questions that I have for you. Thanks.
And especially the de-risk part.
Uh, so yeah, that. So how? What do you mean by AGI, for example? That would be to answer it properly. I have to understand what do you mean by artificial general intelligence.
Artificial general
Yeah,
intelligence.
but what does that mean?
AI will be actually training AI in the future, and the kind of knowledge that's going to be unlocked in the future is going to be immense, right? So, yeah, so something that we've been doing maybe in we couldn't have done in centuries is going to be unlocked, right? So that's what I mean.
No, but in practice, what we are seeing is that as these LLMs are getting bigger and bigger, their accuracy is falling. It's not that with more and more investment, it is becoming more and more precise. So there is no, I don't see how do you learn that from here we are very close to AGI. I think we are just here. We don't know what will happen in the future. So where we are. But whether this will improve by putting more and more money, it's not clear at all.
No, of course, I agree that
So
it
the
will.
technology has to change. Now, if you are asking whether a new technology will come,
So which is
your guess will be as good as mine.
agreed. Yeah, that's the hardest thing to do is to predict the future. But when you see the unitary robot on the stage do a backflip, then and integrated with the kind of models that we're building right now, I think that
No, sure. So, I mean, robots have been building our cars and they have been building, for example, semiconductors and everything. So, a specific laborious task, they are good to doing that, but it doesn't mean that the intelligence is general. It's specific to a task. So, task specific, sure, this is why we are discussing the use cases. You pick a use case and you create an AI just for it.
Sure. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. If there are more questions, the panelists are all around, and maybe let's just catch them and have our discussions, in-depth discussions about. It could be philosophical. It could be what happens next, which is for everyone's guess. That's what we know. Thank you, everyone, and over to you, David.
Let me request the panel to please stay up for a quick photograph and we'll have a felicitation. quick group photograph, please. Thank you. Thank you once again to our panelists for the insightful conversation. Without further ado, I would like to immediately start our next panel. The next panel will be on the Global AI Impact Awards. Really, what we'll be looking at is how do we measure and recognize the effectivity of AI use cases across the global south. So, with that, let me invite Amlan Mohanty, fellow at Carnegie India, to moderate this session. To join him on the panel, Deepak Mishra, advisor to the World Bank, Madan Padaki, managing trustee and founder of Head Held High Foundation, Kirti Pandey, mission director of Open AgriNet, Maya Sherman, innovation attaché at the Embassy of Israel in India, and Nakul Jain, MD and CEO of Wadhwani Global AI. Over to you, Amlan.
David, can we start? Okay, I am going to take the privilege of just going straight for it. Just everyone, so you know that we're constrained for time. Some of us on this panel need to be at the working group meeting at 5. So we're actually going to just try and wrap this up in 30 minutes, maybe I know that's shorter than we had initially planned. So that's to you panelists, quick, almost rapid fire style, and I'm sure the audience will appreciate that brevity as well. And we'll try and wrap up by 4:50, so some of us can make it to the working group meeting. Okay, so I'm not going to introduce all of your speakers. Everyone's affiliations are on the placards here, but I do want to take a moment to just acknowledge that this is really diverse panel. So thank you all for being here. We have obviously diplomats, we have grassroots implementers, we have people working on tech for good initiatives, we have people with global perspectives. So I'm really excited to be moderating this panel. Really, the first session kind of set out why we're even doing this panel. There are two clear outcomes for the working group. There's the Global AI Commons, and there's this idea of creating a Global AI Impact Award, right? So you really want to reward the countries, the developers, the builders who are creating AI use cases that are making real-world impact. So we wanted to use this panel to inform that second deliverable on the AI Impact Awards themselves, right? What should be the awards reward? What should they look like? What should the institutionalization process look like? And so I'm trying to break it down actually to 3 fundamental questions, right? Which hopefully we can answer at the end of this panel. One is, what are the types of AI use cases which have demonstrable real world impact, which something like a Global AI Impact Award will actually recognize? 2 is to be able to identify what's a useful AI use case in the real world. What are the metrics that we should use to be able to measure the impact, right, at scale? I think a related question is, what's in some way restricting the barriers to adoption? And finally, trying to understand what those awards really should look like, right? What is the structure of this award system? How do we maintain continuity across this, obviously, summit going forward? So really thinking about institutionalizing. So those are 3 big, at least, goals in 30 minutes. I'm setting myself up, I know, for failure, but that's just how we should roll. So I'll start maybe with you, Nakul, if I can, right at the end, end-to-end conversation. But really, if you can very briefly, you've worked across different sectors in India, right? Working at Wadhwani Global, healthcare, agriculture, education seems to be the focus areas. Integrating all of this into citizen, welfare services seems to be another focus area. Can you just identify 2 or 3 high-impact types of use cases, as specific or generic as you want it to be? But if you can explain why you think those are the most impactful, what is the real-world impact you're seeing in those 2 or 3 types of use cases that perhaps we should be rewarding with the Global AI Impact Award?
No, thank you for that question. Over the course of last 7 years, Wadhwani AI programs in India, we have done almost 20 to 25 odd solutions. I just speak about 2 solutions where we have seen considerable impact. In field of education, oral reading fluency has been one of the solutions where we have built an application to assess fluency levels of children. Through repeated studies, it's been seen that the fluency levels of students in a particular grade do not match that of what is required at particular grade, right? Which means there's a problem that needs to start with assessment followed by remediation. And this is something that we've been able to work with government of Gujarat and government of Rajasthan, where for students from class second to class 8, we've been able to build this solution, and this helps them assess their fluency, which can then provide the teachers with a more targeted intervention opportunity, because now at a student level the app is able to produce where a particular student lacks, right? Over the course of last couple of years, we have seen this solution being rolled out in more than 30,000 schools with 200,000 teachers already using it. uh, we've done assessment for more than 5 million students and a total of roughly 12 million assessments, right? Those are pretty big numbers with respect to what AI could have done, right? And I'll come to the commonality, but let me just quickly mention the other use case in health. Uh, TB is a big burden in India. Active case finding is one of the main culprits because of which we are still, a few years away before we eliminate TB. And one of the major reasons is a lot of these patients are either asymptomatic or partially symptomatic, which means the current rule-based algorithms that are currently being used might miss these patients. So we were able to build a non-invasive, low-cost solution that, in addition to symptomatic data, is also able to capture cough sounds, solicited cough sounds, and is able to screen for TB patients, which essentially means that now the health workers that are already going door to door need to just collect one additional signal apart from what they were already collecting. The solution already deployed across 10 states. We have done 200,000 odd inferences. And what the result that we were able to find was there was a 13% additional addition to the already existing cases, because those patients that were flagged by the cough application were asymptomatic or partially symptomatic, right? So these are some of the real world impact that we've been seeing, whether it's increasing the fluency in directing interventions or actual, life-saving indications that an application of screening can do. Right? And
Nakul, thank you for that. I'll just come back to you on the commonality point that we were coming back to. But maybe if you can just pick up from a few more sectors, right, to just try and look at across the sector, across sectorally, what those commonalities could be. Kirti, if I can come to you. You've worked a lot in the agri-stack space, obviously looking at AI-led interventions. So two short questions, if you can answer them briefly. One, again, same question, high impact use cases in the agricultural sector, if you can give me one or two examples. But two, in the way that kind of Nakul was also describing it, what is it about AI, right, that's actually unique, that's providing that real-world impact, right? Because we've had obviously traditional automation systems. Nakul gave the example of like maybe rules-based systems don't particularly work in some scenarios. We want to, develop new types of systems which are, based on new machine learning systems. So in the agricultural context, what are high-impact use cases, and why is the use of AI particularly relevant there?
So talking about high impact use cases, I'll bring in the example of Mahavistar, which was brought up discussed in the fireside chat as well as Bharat Vistar, where we are implementing a DPI plus AI approach to agriculture. So bringing AI on top of DPIs like AgriStack, bringing population scale to agriculture. The topmost use cases for us are scheme information, scheme application, and benefit status tracking for the schemes. Earlier, a farmer had to visit the department and the ministry 4 to 5 times in a day, for 4 to 5 times for application of a scheme. So that means loss of labor, loss of a working day. Now this can be digitized. It brings an efficiency not only for the farmers, but also for the system, which does not have to deal with multiple paper applications. Talking about AI, where AI can bring in maximum impact, let's talk. Looking at agriculture in India, we have one extension worker for about 1,000 to 1,500 farmers. If you go to Africa, the ratio is 1 is to 5,000 or 1 is to 10,000, depending on different countries. So while the availability and intent to provide services and advisory to farmer is there, being able to provide in real time in their own language is missing. So AI converts the scarce
availability of information, into continuous information available to farmers in their local language. And I would also like to double click on the impact of voice. If you look at the farming ecosystem in India and in most of the women farmers are still on their feature phones. So they are not very comfortable using chatbots. So if these can be enabled with voice-based, AI-based voice telephony systems like Vasudha in Maharashtra and other such solutions coming up, which Charlie spoke about in the earlier panel, that can bring in real inclusivity.
So this is what I've got so far, right? Across these three sectors, agriculture, healthcare, education, this is really about improving learning outcomes through direct remedial interventions. Similarly, with healthcare, right, you're trying to identify and make clinical medical interventions. And I think with the agriculture use case, I think efficiency was the kind of front and center. But I think what was really interesting is this why AI, I think, question, right? People constantly ask, why do you just want to tap on AI because it's, in trend? But it seems like it's at least providing at least what I'm getting three C's, right? It's contextual, it's conversational, and it's continuous, right? So I think that's something that, for me at least, is a good takeaway. You ended with an interesting point about inclusivity, right? So Madan, I want to just come to you because across education and healthcare and obviously agriculture too, it's really important to ensure that these are not just serving urban use cases, right? We focus a lot, that's the kind of stuff that gets all of the hype and attention, but each of these three outcomes seem to have a relevance for rural markets, right? We've done a lot of work in the rural areas. If I can ask you to maybe, if you want to comment on any of these use cases, great, but really to focus on how do we ensure when we're measuring for impact, there is an element for inclusivity that we're evaluating, right? How would you build in that into the metric?
Sure. Thank you. I would flip it around and say that the main bulk is in rural, urban is being included, right? So I think we should look at cases where we can impact a billion people who all live in peri-urban, rural hinterlands of India. So therefore, the conceptualization that I have is it's not AI at the center, people around it, it's people at the center and AI around it. So therefore, the construct of Jan AI. Three things come out from well, the use cases are great. With the work I've done, three challenges come. How do you reach the last mile, right? How do you take solutions to the last mile? How do you build that trust where the solutions are adopted? And third, how do you create capacities of that cluster? It could be a village, a gram panchayat, or a taluka level, to be able to own and decide what they want to do with the solutions that are coming out and craft their own pathways than being told top down that you do this, right? So, to my mind, I think if Gandhiji was alive in this day and age, he would have probably looked at AI as the new digital charka, right? So, how can we visualize AI as a digital charka where you empower communities to adopt that charka to weave their own destinies by understanding the power of it, by trusting the layer that brings this to it, and by making sure that the last mile, impact for me is when the farmer is able to answer, has this helped you earn 1,000 rupees more? A women entrepreneur is able to answer, has it helped you get 50 customers new? Right? Has it helped a young person find a job in the local environs itself? So I think if we can work backwards, create these layers, and then apply the power of tech that we're all talking about, then the real impact of changing lives on the ground will be felt. So that's the endeavor for us at Jan AI, where we're trying to in this year create India's first 100 AI-ready villages, where we can truly say, yes, this village has taken AI and created maximum impact at a village level for communities and households to improve from AI.
So if we have to ask a question to measure impact from an inclusivity lens, in the way you described, would it be how many people in the rural area have you impacted?
Absolutely. In fact, it will come back to what this working group is about. What is the economic growth of the village? What is the social good that is developed? These are very measurable metrics.
Okay. Thanks, Madan. Deepak, if I can come to you, right? You obviously, advising World Bank. You're at IndiaAI. A lot of economic impact analysis that's happening, right? So if I can just ask you some of these questions that we were asking, how easy are they to actually measure meaningfully, authentically, right? It's one thing to say how many people are you impacting in the rural areas, but this question of impact itself is a very nebulous term, right? You can focus on some specific tangible outputs like agricultural productivity, makes sense, but in other areas, perhaps it's not so easy to do. So your assessment of whether it's actually possible to evaluate some of these questions and build them into something like a global
short answer is very difficult. But let me start with a non-AI example. So in 2026, China has about 150 companies which are making electric vehicles, and they're going to roll out 3,000 models of electric cars in China. In India, we have about 4 companies making electric cars, and we'll have 20 models of electric vehicles being rolled out as new models. It's not AI, but it's about scale, it's about impact. So what's the big difference between China and India when it comes to the fact that they could do 126 EVs versus 4 here? And the story is the same if you go to AI too. And to me, that's because the answer to this lies in a statement that we had a report in 2016 in the World Bank called digital dividends, where you looked at digital economy and said, why are the digital dividends not spreading very fast to the rest of the world? And the answer was, digital revolution needs a very strong analog foundation. So without a strong foundation on the analog side, you actually can't spread digital as fast. And the example that Professor Nitin Saxena gave here was a wonderful example that he's doing it. Why is Odisha, Chhattisgarh, or Gujarat not copying it? There might be, but because the answer is the analog foundation part. Who in Chhattisgarh is responsible for doing the grievance mechanism that redresses there, and whether he or she has any incentive to solve that problem. So you can do this by top down, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath forcing you to solve this problem, or Prime Minister Modi, or you do bottom up incentive mechanisms. So the big reason for scale and impact that we're not having in India, and I think it's not just about taking one idea and scaling up in the whole of India. You could actually do a lot of replicability of a good idea. And if you do that, so to me, the biggest thing that we're missing at this point is the right incentives for people to roll this out and adopt it and be a champion.
Just a quick follow up. So we need to get analog right before we tap on AI to scale. Do you see it as sequential, or for us to be able to leapfrog, really, the leapfrog opportunity doesn't need to happen in parallel?
No, thankfully you can do it in parallel. And often the solution to the analog foundation strengthening lies in digital. Obviously do that, but I think you got to get the incentive right. And I think at this point we are still very focused on kind of getting the technology, the supply side, and also kind of creating the demand for it, but not getting the people who are going to champion this technology, whether they have the right incentive to scale up and replicate. And I feel that's the big missing thing in India.
Great, thank you. Maya, can I come to you? So we've really focused on India, like the first 15 minutes of this panel. It'd be good to get a global perspective. Is any of this resonating? Obviously, you're a diplomat, at the embassy, Israeli embassy in India. Is any of this resonating with you? Does this make sense for countries, with very different demographics? And two, more broadly, what are the types of metrics that we should really be considering for something like a global? Is there something we're missing because we're just blind?
Thank you for this. I think that, first of all, I started here in the Indian development sector, so I'm coming from these kind of discussions. I feel that at the current stage, we do share a lot of the challenges. So, great interventions, and still we are seeing this kind of challenges in the impact measurement. How do we actually measure this over time? And of course, each country will address it a bit differently. So, Israel, very small demography. In the end, we are looking for, I would say, very fast ROIs. We're looking for deep tech technologies. We're looking for this faster integration into industry. But in the same time, when we're speaking about diversity, inclusive growth, these are things that we're also looking into. And I think that we are seeing this common trends repeating themselves. I feel that we're in this very interesting time in which AI has evolved enough in terms of the discussion that we are no longer looking just for numbers. We're looking for numbers over time. So it's no longer just how many users were able to use X using AI. We want to see for how long they can maintain it. So I would say that the upcoming parameters should look like, especially in the informal sector. I'm also part of GPI, and whether we're actually focusing much more on the informal Indian sector. So it's no longer how many users were able to use this for a certain duration. We want to see how scalable the intervention can be. So maintenance is one. I would say clearly everything connected to interoperability, the ability to, first of all, being able to implement a certain intervention across different places and locations, the ability
to open source the intervention as well. And these are new things, and I feel that they are connected to the fact that if in the beginning we were looking for the more sophisticated technology, something that is binary, we can say exactly how much a certain campaign increased the ROI. Today we are trying to answer more complex and interesting questions. We are trying to say, okay, we have some binary inputs, but if we're trying to enhance economic growth and social good, AI has to answer some interesting sociocultural challenges in them. So parameters, of course, of languages, open source, diversity as a whole. These are, I feel, what we are currently looking into. So it's almost about how can we make AI to be our day-to-day usage and instrument. That's what I feel we'll be looking in when it comes to the future impact assessments of this.
Thanks, Maya. So I think very clear these things that we might think of as global south challenges actually are cross-cultural, cross-national. So I think that's the whole point that the ambassador was making as well, right? What are we calling global south? Really, I think that was a useful insight. But you did mention, I think, this point about open source, openness. So Nitya, I want to come to you on that. You obviously represent cost as well. So I just wanted to want you to think about and talk about, the value and the importance of openness. We heard obviously Debjani talk about this in the first session. Fundamental to the design principle of DPI have scale is openness. Can you describe some ways in which the current AI plus DPI approach that you're using with the agriculture use cases embodies openness?
Yeah.
And why is that important?
So why is that important? I feel openness in today's date and time is not good to have; it's a must-have. If you look at agriculture sector, farmer is not just a crop. Is not just growing a crop. They are also cultivating livestock. They have poultry, aquaculture, fisheries, so on and so forth. Now, if we are building closed solutions, we might want farmers to go into 4 apps, set up 4 different logins, have 4 different registries, and be confused by all of it. What we are doing in Open AgriNet, Mahavistar, and Bharat Vistar is trying to build open source AI, like solution which is integrable with multiple services. In case of Mahavistar, we have about 200 plus warehouses services integrated. We have 300 plus APMC information providing APMCs providing market information. We have the fisheries department, the livestock department, and the aquaculture department all integrated into it because APIs. So this makes it easier to avoid replicability, uh, easier to reuse, and enables different departments to enable their use cases for the farmers in the same interface without us requiring them to sign into multiple applications. So this builds in trust and also provides space and scope for the ecosystem to grow. It's not about one department, one sector, one particular organization growing. It is for an ecosystem growth, and it's. I think we were also discussing about there was somebody from the incubation space there. Maharashtra is also trying to integrate the startups from their the AI startups which are in the incubated by the state of Maharashtra into the Mahavistar app. So by building on open interoperable systems, we are providing that fertile ground for public, private, the Samaj Sarkar Bazar integration services.
Very interesting examples. Nakul, I'll come back to you, right? Clearly, we've identified a big challenge is how do you actually measure, right, for impact. So I'm just wondering and we've got obviously this big focus on public-private partnership, obviously developing the use cases. I was just wondering, do you see a role for public-private partnership in measuring impact itself, right? So one way you could answer this, in fact, what I would like you to answer is how does Wadhwani AI itself measure the impact of solutions it's developing, supporting, right? What kind of systems you have in place? And two is how do you share this data with government, if at all, for them to be able to understand actually what's impacting, what are impactful applications, for them to be able to design policy frameworks based on this evidence?
Sure. So, all of us do already know what kind of matrices that need to be measured for performance, for adoption, for impact, right? And we all understand the differences between all of them, right? So it's not like Wadhwani AI as an organization does something new in terms of defining how to measure impact. It's more to do with the process. So rather than having measurement as an afterthought, what we ensure is it's a part of the journey right from the inception of or the thought of the use case itself. While we analyze whether a use case is worth putting in money, resources, efforts into, we also make sure that we already know how will the impact be measured, and is this measurable? Is it, uh, you know, cheap enough for us to measure, or it'll be a very expensive proposition to even measure the impact? So all these are built into every aspect of the journey, whether it's at the design, whether it's at the development, or whether it's during the deployment. And you are not just sharing these matrices with the government, but you are co-creating with them. So to answer the question, it's not like we share this with the government. When we are working with the government to build some of these use cases, we collectively establish protocols on how these measurements will happen at the time of inception, so that government finds a co-ownership of all of this. Lastly, also in terms of public-private partnership and Wadhwani Global as an organization, given that we've started operating across the different countries now, there's also a shared language that we are trying to create. That how can we learn from various processes or matrices that a lot of these other countries are using to measure impact versus what we've been doing, and how can a common taxonomy, how can a common process framework be established so that some of these knowledge could be shared between countries, and of course impact could be measured as the final outcome and not just adoption of a particular use.
Yeah, thanks, Nakul. Firstly, I just want to mention, I know I've been going rapid fire, but really appreciate the brief and crisp responses. I got to say, I do this a lot as a moderator. This has been excellent so far. I do have to wrap up though in the next, 10 minutes or so. I want to take some questions as well. So maybe do a final couple of questions. Maya, just maybe on the point that Nakul was saying, we performance, scale, impact, those things are easy to measure. The one thing that's come up a lot is trust, right? And trust is really hard to measure. It's like very intangible, interpersonal. How do you measure for trust, right? One way, I think about it is you measure for reliability, you measure for some specific security standards, but is there a way that you're thinking about evaluating trust itself and safety more broadly in the context of how we would reward someone as an impactful use case?
So I think that it's a great question, because I think that we're constantly discussing it when it comes to interventions. And I say this because there is something with paradoxical. We're trying to bring an instrument, technological instrument, that is not really increasing the trust. AI has a lot of problematic aspects when it comes to human performance, the way that it can replace it. So it's almost that we're trying to put innovation and then to consider that we have to trust it. So I think that we first of all need to understand it's not necessarily a process or an intervention that's supposed to make our life easy when we're trying to think of trust as a whole. But it doesn't mean that we should not work harder. I think that what's been helpful for a lot of the intervention that we've been doing in India and I think in other places was to make sure that we are gathering the right feedback and constantly. It's almost like I feel that a lot of the interventions have become incredibly agile in this regard. This constant connection with the users, understanding how we can increase a bit more the relations of them with the intervention, with the instrument. So the communication here is key. And to make sure that it's a very bottom-up process. So I'm thinking in the past we were focusing, you have the technology, you are going around it. It's the user having a certain understanding approach, a long-term approach to what the intervention is about to be. So I think this has proven to be a successful method of, first of all, putting the user at the center when it comes to how they're perceiving trust and how we can measure it better. But I'll be frank, this is something that, at least from the intervention that I've been involved with, it's something that we're still exploring and trying to understand how we can scale this better, especially because trust is probably one of these aspects that I believe AI is harming. We are trusting a bit less ourselves as humans because we have something that can, again, do things better than us. And I feel this is a question that will accompany us perhaps for the next interventions, because we can do things. We don't necessarily have to trust them. But that's a question.
No doubt. So I actually didn't get a full answer, and I think that's a good thing. It means it's a problem that we still need to solve, which is something that you admitted. And it's good that we have people like you working on this. Mandan, if I can just come to you, I think just taking off what Maya was saying, you want to measure people first, right, on the ground continuously. So I'm just wondering, do you think we have enough feedback loops in place to really understand the impact of an application from the people it's serving, right? Do you think, traditionally the ways that we've been able to do this, the surveys, Obviously, language is a barrier there. It's, it's analog. Maybe that's how we should be doing it. But we actually have access to AI tools now. I know some people working on getting direct feedback from voice-based chatbots. So, two questions. Are you think we have good feedback loops in place right now to understand impact to the people we're building these use cases for? Two is, do you think we can and should be using AI to collect better feedback?
Absolutely. I just wanted to bring a slightly different context to what you're saying. Today is also National Youth Day, and I think the challenge that India faces is how do you gainfully employ another 150 million youth entering the workforce in the next 10, 15 years. So one of the manifestations we're working on is from a feedback, trust, etc., is that telecom got democratized through PCOs. Internet got democratized through these internet centers that were set up and people were offered that internet service there. We are visualizing that AI should get democratized through an agentic AI cafe, which will be in every village of the country, which is run by an entrepreneur who's a local youth, who then enables the local communities to come in. He will help them create an agent, manage the agent, look at what are the problem solutions. Now, imagine a network of 750,000 such entrepreneurs, youth, who are engaging with communities on a daily basis, and there's a network of these agents where we're getting real-time feedback loops on what is working in which village, what is working in Kerala that can be replicated in Kashmir, what is working in Kashmir that can be learned and taken to Odisha. So I still think we have to think a phygital model. We have to create opportunities where we can create entrepreneurs and enable youth to stay in their own villages and to earn income. So if I'm a youth staying in a village and I have 5,000 subscribers who are paying me 50 rupees a month, hey, and if I'm adding value of 500 rupees, I'm earning 25,000 rupees a month by offering this as a service. So the aspect of not thinking only digital but a digital model and leveraging young people in the village to be solution creators for problems that the community faces, I think is one manifestation. I love the quote here on this thing that every thought we think is creating our future. I think if together we can collectively put our priorities and put a thought saying that we have to enable youth to earn incomes, we have to create digital economies locally, we should avoid migration, and we should enable mass flourishing of our villages. If that is the thought we operate on, I think that is the future that we create.
Got it. So combine physical and digital interventions. Agent seems to be something that is the current hype. But you described a way in which I believe they might be useful for this feedback. Okay, we're almost at time. So maybe last point from you, Deepak. We talked about obviously working with local communities to understand actually impact. Let's pan out to the Global AI Summit. Obviously, we have representatives from different countries. What is good international collaboration in doing measurement right and the right impactful use cases look like?
Okay, very quickly. I think first is to, sometimes people look at this multilateral organization, think they should be the fountainhead of big idea. Most of the time, my feeling is the multilateral organizations are not at the forefront of it. They're actually behind the curve. A lot of the ideas are actually coming from countries, from regions, and all sorts of places. But the multilaterals are much better in taking those ideas, which are well established in one part, and arbitrate and diffuse it to the other parts of it. So a good example is DPI. So once DPI was well established in the Indian context, there's a lot of demand for it, and I think World Bank and others have done a fairly good job in making sure that those DPI's ideas, the research, the technology, the people, are all kind of adapted into different contexts. And so that, to me, is one good way for, and in this particular Bharat AI summit that we are going to have, there's a World Bank partnership with NITI and others to actually produce a compendium of impact use cases around the world. So I think that's one way that we could help. The second one possibility, as I said, starting with the analog foundation. A lot of these organizations deal not with technology but with the rest of the world. How do you create the scaling economy? How do you create entrepreneurship? How do you get the infrastructure right? How do you help in making sure that a lot of the stacks are in place and the money, the finance, and other things? So to me, those are the ideas that one should be looking at as an arbitrator of DPI and AI knowledge across the world. And second is to strengthen the analog foundation of the AI.
Great. Okay, awesome. We are actually exactly at the time that I intended to end. I really, honestly, I got to give you guys credit for doing this with really insightful answers. I mean, for me, at least, the big takeaways, look, I think we know what to measure for impact. That was always clear. It's how should we do it. The process is what I think I got a lot of insight on, right? You want to start with physical analog systems, build that up, have clear, robust systems, but then think about intelligently when to apply AI, right? And this framework of making sure they're contextual, conversational, continuous, I thought was really useful. I think two, really thinking about serving the user. In this case, whatever the use case is, the farmer, the healthcare worker, and so on, and keeping them front and center, thinking about their needs, having feedback mechanisms to really get feedback from them. So local partnerships really important, but then, like you said, international collaboration, international partnerships. So there's a role obviously for diplomacy, for multilateral organizations. I think that's why this summit makes sense. I think before I just hand it back, are there any questions in the room for anyone? Maybe have time for one question. Yeah.
So powerful. What impact is it going to have on cybersecurity? Like, is it going to be more strengthened, or is it going to be more vulnerable as well? Like, systems are going to be much more agile in future. So, in what context cybersecurity can be handled with respect to AI?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring it back to obviously the theme for this, right? Which is like, how can we reward people who are building systems that are secure? So, for me at least, there is a big metric around, resilience. So ensuring our systems are resilient to cybersecurity attacks, globally, domestically. So, a short answer: is it going to be more of a cybersecurity risk? I think that yes, and I think it's something that we need to build defenses against. And I think anyone who is building that, from the ground up into their AI use cases needs to be rewarded. So, short answer: anybody else?
I think that we're already seeing that cybersecurity is becoming much more relevant in the AI discussions because we're becoming much more data vulnerable. It's all across public livelihoods. We're seeing much more cybersecurity and AI startups going together, AI-driven security testing. But again, resilience is key. Also, literacy. We need to make sure that the users are aware of what is being given away. I would say quite an interesting time for cybersecurity startups to go into this domain because, again, we're sharing our data much more frequently because it can do some good things, but again, it can also be problematic. So,
and I just want to maybe add the point Mother made: agents, fantastic, huge opportunity, but also a risk, right? You're deploying agents that have autonomy, have access to data, highly capable systems. Definitely increase cybersecurity. On that note, I know David's already looking at me. I also need to rush. So can we just have a round of applause for the wonderful panel, please?
Thank you, Amlan. That was a super insightful, quick panel. Can I ask that you stay back? We'll have a quick felicitation, take a photograph, and we'll wrap up today's session. Quick group photograph. Thank you. With that, we come to a close of this working group session. I really want to thank you for participating with us. I hope these insights shared were useful. We look forward to seeing you at the summit in February. Take care.